Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of TechStrong TV. I'm Alan Schimmel. Today's Thursday, August 20th. Thanks for joining us. This is episode 81 of TechStrong TV, and for me, TechStrong TV is a COVID story. We started this when I sent everyone home from the office because of COVID, and we took it upon us ourselves as a mission to keep everyone, or our audience, and whoever would like to watch us, just up to date on what's going on in our world, right? Around DevOps and cloud native, cloud transformation, cybersecurity, and just kind of keep the news flowing, keep information going, and keep talking to the people we talk to. And we never kind of imagined it would turn into what it's turned into. We actually got notice last week or this week that we were a Platinum Award winner in the .com Awards for video, Best Video Series. And the Platinum Award is their highest award, and we were thrilled to win it and grateful for the recognition. And it made you really realize that our little project here is something, right? There's 8,000 or 9,000 of you watching this every day when we stream, and thank you to all for doing that and watching us and supporting it and everything else. So we're going to keep doing what we're doing, trying to do the best we can, and we appreciate your support. A couple of other announcements I wanted to make. Next week we have a big event here at MediaOps. We are partnered with our friends at GitLab on their GitLab Commit virtual event. We're helping to produce it, record the sessions, promote it, etc. And it's probably the biggest virtual event we've done. There are, I think it's 90 sessions, something like that. Amazing speakers, amazing content, amazing learning, just an amazing event. So do check that out. It's GitLab Commit. I believe it's the 27th next week. It's a 2-day, 24-hour event. Also, I want to announce that we have the DevOps India Summit coming up in early September, and has traditionally been the largest DevOps event in India, and of course now it's virtual, so anyone can attend. And I strongly encourage you to check that out, DevOps India Summit, DOIS. I'll be speaking there on DevSecOps, by the way. And then also coming up in October, we have two of the major MediaOps virtual events that we've been doing as virtual events for a couple of years. We have the third annual DevOps Experience virtual event, and I'm really happy to announce that KK Kosakai Kasawagi, who's the founder of Jenkins, former co-founder, CTO of CloudBees, will be keynoting that event along with some other really exciting special guest headliners for DevOps. And then before the DevOps Experience, which I think is October 23rd, October 1st, we have our Kube Virtual Summit, whose theme this year is operationalizing Kubernetes. And we're really happy to have some great headliners, keynoters for that. Priyanka, who is the new executive director. I guess you could still say she's new. The executive director of CNCF will be keynoting. And we've just also recently finalized Tim Hawken, a Google engineer from the original Kubernetes team, will be a keynote. Liz Rice, a bunch of the CNCF board members and TOC folks will be on there. Tracy Miranda, executive director of CDF, will be on as well. So a virtual event, October 1st, as well as DevOps Experience. So do go. And by the way, all of these events I just gave you are free. I don't believe the market is yet where we should be charging for virtual events. I think if we're lucky enough for you to take time out of your day to go check out what's getting put on, asking you for money on top of sponsors sponsoring it is it's just not the right model for today. There's too much hardship in the world right now to be putting our hands in your pockets. So go check out those events, register for them. We'll keep you posted. You'll hear more in the coming weeks about all of them. Well, the GitLab Commit one is next week, so don't miss that. And the DevOps India Summit follows shortly thereafter. And we're working on another big event towards the end of this year with John Willis, my partner here in Digital Anarchist, and we'll tell you more about that as it becomes more real here in the next week or so. Anyway, so a lot going on on, I guess we could call it an award-winning video show now, TechStrong TV. Let me tell you what we've got in store for you today, though, on TechStrong TV. Number one, we've covered this company, Accurix, or Accurix. I call it Accurix. They launched maybe 3 months ago out of stealth, but they've been doing their homework for a while. And, they announced this past week that they were taking over operationally of a open source project called TerraScan, which was originally built to scan Terraform files and projects, but now it's expanding beyond there. We talked with Cesar Rodriguez, who was one of the driving forces behind TerraScan and is now a member of the Accurix team, about this. And TerraScan, I should mention, also works with OPA, Open Policy Agent, and it's a pretty cool project. Cesar Rodriguez of Accurix is going to tell us more about it. It's a great interview. Then after that, I'm really happy to be joined by my friend Caroline Wong. For those of you who didn't or may know, we did a roundtable webinar earlier this week. It was on the 18th, and it was on Dev Everything Ops. And I had an amazing panel. We had Anders Wahlgren of CloudBees, Wolfgang Platz, founder, chief strategy officer at Tricentis, Jane Grohl, my partner, CEO at DevOps Institute, myself, and then we had Caroline Wong, chief strategy officer at Cobalt. And there are just certain people, whether they walk in a room or they're on a Zoom screen, and they just light it up. And Caroline's one of those people. She just lights it up. She lights it up because the intelligence and the insight that she brings in her commentary is just so on point and so perfect that I enjoy listening to her, and I think our audience does as well. Anyway, I've got Caroline today. Cobalt just announced this morning a big second round, a B round. I think it was, I want to say $26 million or 29, something like that. Caroline is going to tell us about it and who's behind it and what they're going to be doing and what she's up to, and you don't want to miss that. Then after Caroline, I'm joined by Tim Amanpour. Tim is a SVP engineering at PagerDuty. I'm going to talk a little bit about how COVID is affecting organizations that use PagerDuty for alert monitoring and incident response and stuff like that, and how it's affecting market. Good conversation with Tim. And then we're going to reach into our archives today, and keeping on a theme, I'm going to replay something from TechStrong by my partner Jane Grohl, who is the CEO and co-founder of DevOps Institute. And Jane's presentation at TechStrong was upskilling for the hybrid TechStrong human in 2020 and beyond. And, upskilling is a major theme for the DevOps Institute. Actually, today, if you want to head on over after TechStrong TV, their monthly upskilling event is on. You can get to it over at DevOpsInstitute.com, so check that out. And then also, I'll be back with the news after that. Then we'll turn things over to Charlene O'Hanlon. Charlene, our managing editor, has a great interview with Nelson Petracek of TIBCO about the API economy and how companies can benefit. Charlene's also going to do a webinar preview of what we have in store for early next week for Media Ops webinars. We've been having some great webinars lately. Then I'll be back to bring Mitch on, the Analyst Corner with Mitch. Mitch has some exciting news today. We've added 2 great new analyst to the bench at Accelerated Strategies Group. Mitch will tell you who they are and all about them. And then Mitch also has a video with Wicker CTO Chris Howell to talk about the state of security around the 5G rollout. You know, we all hear about Huawei and what's going on with that, but we don't often hear broader around security and 5G. And then I'll be back to wrap things up. It's a great Thursday here on TechStrong TV. Really looking forward to bringing you the rest of the show. We're going to take a quick break right now for a commercial, and I'll be right back with our first guest. Okay, at the top of the show, I mentioned our first guest today is Cesar Rodriguez. Cesar was the founder of an open source project called TerraScan, which was made to scan Terraform files for security vulnerabilities. Cesar joined Accurix, a cloud security play, that company for cloud security engineering we've been covering since they came out of stealth. And Cesar's part of the team there now, and Accurix has taken over the ownership and maintenance of TerraScan and expanded it to go beyond Terraform and provide some real open source security scanning. It also works with OPA, Open Policy Agent, and the folks at Accurix have donated or contributed a lot of IP right now that was in the Accurix products up to TerraScan. So it's becoming a real quality project. Let's now go to my interview with Cesar Rodriguez and find out more.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us on another TechStrong TV episode. This segment features Cesar Rodriguez. Cesar works with the folks over at Accurix, but Cesar was also one of the, founders of an open source project that he's going to tell us about that is now, Cesar's joined Accurix and is now the open source project's part of Accurix, but we're going to let him tell you more. Cesar, first of all, thanks for joining. Thanks for joining us on TechStrong TV. Hey, I'm going to ask a favor of you because you probably are busy doing real security work and don't do a lot of video interviews. But I need you to kind of twist a little into the camera. That's it. Beautiful. Good, man. All right. So talk to us, Cesar. What was that open source project that you're working on, and what's it called? And give us the scoop.
So the project is called TerraScan. So first of all, let me give you a little bit of a big picture perspective of what we're doing in Accurix, and then we can talk a little bit about how does TerraScan fit into that picture. So from a big picture Accurix perspective, we're seeing that organizations are embracing cloud technologies like containers, serverless, service mesh in different cloud environments, AWS, GCP, Azure. And over the last 2 years on our research, we've seen that we've over 30 billion records have been exposed, the latest one being Twilio. So from that, what we captured is that 93% of cloud deployments have some sort of misconfiguration that has led to that breach, like things like open S3 buckets, open security groups. And the good news is that at the same time, we're seeing that organizations are adopting what's called infrastructure as code, which is defining the way that their infrastructure looks like as code and then deploying that infrastructure as code. So from a security perspective, this gives us the opportunity to scan and analyze that code as it's being developed rather than when it's already at runtime, which is the best way to capture security issues because you can capture it right on the developer's IDE. So around 3 years ago, I was working on a very big cloud migration project, and I was doing security assessments and security reviews for the Terraform code that we were writing. And I had to take a 4-week paternity leave. And during that time, I thought, what would be a good way for me to empower developers to do the security assessments that I was doing on their own without having them to rely on a security expert to look at their code. So doing something similar to what we were doing with their regular application code, their Java, Python, etc., doing that, but now for their infrastructure as code. And I was looking at if there's anything available out there that would do this for me. And I couldn't find anything, but found a couple of Python libraries that helped me develop regexes and to do things like scanning Terraform for missing encryption, missing login and monitoring, open network configurations. So I packaged this and place it in the open source for anyone to benefit. And the tool was called TerraScan. So TerraScan is a static code analyzer for infrastructure as code. And originally it was limited to scanning Terraform and only AWS, also the old version of Terraform. So what we've done and what we're happy to announce is that we released a new version of TerraScan 1.0, and it has a big architectural changes in the way that TerraScan works to make it more of a generic purpose static code analyzer. So today we're able to scan Terraform, but we'll soon be adding the ability to scan CloudFormation and Kubernetes YAML files and others. At the same time, we rewrote the tool. Now it's in Golang, and we've integrated the OPA policy engine, which is a project from CNCF. So now you can define Rego policies to scan your infrastructure as code using TerraScan. And what this allows us to do is to have a common set of policies based on things like cloud provider. So if you want to scan misconfigurations in AWS, you can use those policies to scan your Terraform, your CloudFormation, or whatever other language you decide. So we built this to be extensible and to be easily plug and play different cloud providers or infrastructure as code languages. And then the other addition that we did with this new version is now we have a server mode. So you can deploy TerraScan as a server and have it be part of the way that you assess policies to your organization. So you can send your IAC files to TerraScan. It will tell you the results of the scan through an API. So you don't have to rely on a CLI. There's more flexibility with that regards.
Excellent. You know, this is a fascinating look into sort of the birth and maturation of an open source project, right? What started as a paternity leave project for you, right, then becomes sort of a bona fide open source, project that other people kind of jump in on and get behind and contribute to, which is really what open source is about, right? And then as you come on board with Accurix, they incorporate it, and then they wind up adding, right, a lot of IP they had developed, kind of thrown into the pot. So I just want to make sure our audience understands what we're talking and what went on here is, so now Accurix becomes the owners of the IP, if you will, and they'll manage the TerraScan project, but for the community, right? Because it's an open source tool that anyone in the community can use.
Exactly. So now we push around 500 policies with the initial launch. So now everyone has access to these policies. They can use them. They can extend them. Any gaps, they can do a pull request and we'll review and accept. So we're managing this project, but it's available for anyone to use.
That's great. And then, Cesar, what about, people are always worried. So we live in what I call the foundational era of open source now, right? Where the idea is that if only one company kind of owns the project or controls the project, other companies may be like hesitant, right, to contribute code because it's for the benefit of the company that owns it, not maybe for the whole community or other companies. So I'm wondering if there's any thought of maybe having broader ownership or a community board, or donating it to a foundation or something like that here.
Yep, definitely. That's our target. We don't want to be the sole owners and maintainers. So we're talking and looking for partners to make sure that this project lives on its own and has more of our community ownership. And we are part of CNCF, and that's a potential avenue for a project that could be owned by something like CNCF, where it benefits everyone. It's not really tied to us.
Agreed. That would sound like a great home for it. At this point, what percent? So, it started off as a Terraform project. I'm going to imagine that the majority of the scripts and so forth are still Terraform related.
Yep.
Correct?
Yep. So right now, for the initial launch, we're scanning Terraform, but we have within our product, we have the capability already to scan CloudFormation and Kubernetes. So we want to bring those capabilities into our open source product so that everyone can benefit from this. And it's extensible, like I said. So we're looking at other IAC and other languages that we can keep adding to it.
Excellent. And then kind of you have this Accurix product and company of which Terraform is now incorporated into it, right? And another, our audience is very familiar with open source. So you have this model concept of like open core, right? Where maybe Terrascan has, all of these open, free functionality kind of stuff, scans that it does. But then there are freemium, premium, whatever you want to call them, functionality that fits in on top of that. Is that kind of where Accurix comes in now, with kind of premium functionality on top of just base Terrascan?
Yeah. So in Accurix, what we're aiming for is to have something that we call immutable security, and it's 3 pillars. One of them is scanning your code and making sure that you have feedback for your developers as soon as they're codifying some infrastructure, making sure that we give them immediate feedback on their IDE and on their repositories and what are the issues, so they get remediated before they become a concern at runtime. The second one is making sure that we scan your cloud itself, and that's more of a that you can do that with our product. So scanning for any issues in your cloud environment. If someone made a manual change in the cloud environment, if you have an issue in your cloud environment where someone has access to it directly outside of your code, we want to make sure that we're capturing that. And then the last one is ensuring that your security posture is always reflected in your code, so we detect drift. So we want to make sure that any changes that are done in the cloud itself are codified back into your code. And that's another capability of our premium offering. So Terraform is what it allows you to do is having that foundational scanning capability for your developers so that they can get immediate feedback on their IDE on any security issues. So that's the first step.
Mm-hmm. So, I've been doing open source for a while. So what they're really doing is that they're not creating modules for Terrascan per se, but what they're creating is functionality that sits on top of Terrascan, right?
Yes,
what about plans though to maybe have sort of an open core, Accurix only type of code within the open source code?
Yeah, so we're still in discussions on what what are going to be the portions of the product that will release to the open source and which ones will remain closed source. But what our goal is for anyone that's using cloud native infrastructure to have the tools to assess their environment and to have it in a way that anyone can contribute to that and extend that to their use cases.
Excellent. So Caesar, we only got another minute or two left, but I want to talk a little bit about your own personal journey, right? So, it seems to me, and I don't know, I'm guessing, but you were a security dude, right? Doing these scans, doing these tests, making it happen, and now you're an open source kind of maintainer. But that's probably part of the allure of going to an Accurix is that it doesn't fall on your shoulders.
Yeah.
Right. To keep this project breathing. But what's your role now going forward here?
So basically making sure that our open source tooling remains the best possible the offering that we can offer, and at the same time spreading the word on what Accurix is doing, what our product does, and how can it help organizations secure their cloud environments and adopt cloud native tooling.
Excellent. Do you miss though getting kind of down and dirty with code and scanning and clients?
That I still do that every day. Yeah, that's part of the game.
Yep. Anyway, hey man, thanks for joining us on TechStrong TV. Oh wait, you know what? Where can people get more information about TerraScan?
They can go to our GitHub repository. Is github.com/accurix/TerraScan.
Excellent, and that's the place for it.
Yep.
Cool. All right, Cesar Rodriguez, founder of the TerraScan open source project, now part of Accurix, as is Cesar there. Thanks for joining us on TechStrong TV, Cesar. Come back and visit us.
And good luck with it.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Alan Schimmel here on, what are we on? TechStrong TV. That's what we're on. Thanks for joining. We'll be right back with our next guest.
Hiring great DevOps and cyber talent is a huge challenge for technical teams. Cloud transformation is driving demand higher. You've tried doing it yourself. Job boards, LinkedIn, didn't work. Recruiters are an option, but who do you trust and not waste your time and money? RecruitOps is the new way to source engineering talent. From MediaOps, the people behind DevOps.com, Security Boulevard, Container Journal, and more. We sit right in the middle of the hottest positions in Dev, Sec, and Ops, and the brightest minds in the field. If you're looking for a great position or the talent to fill it, we can help you. Trust us, risk-free.
As I said at the top of the show, there are a few people I get jazzed about to have on our show, to be interviewing and to be working with. One of them is this young lady, Caroline Wong. I first met Caroline 6 years ago, 6 years ago at an RSA event where she spoke for us at the DevSecOps event we do at RSA every year. Stayed in touch with her ever since. She's just a really, really intelligent, bright, always a pleasure. She's been working at Cobalt. She's now the chief strategy officer there, which covers a lot of territory. And they just announced this morning a significant round B raise. Caroline's going to tell us all about it and what they're going to do with the money and what's behind it. So let's go to my interview now with Caroline Wong, chief strategy officer for Cobalt.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey everyone, it's Alan Schimmel. Thanks for watching another episode of TechStrong TV. Really happy to be joined by my friend Caroline Wong, Chief Strategy Officer for Cobalt, Cobalt.io, one of the leading pen test as a service.
That's right.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Pen test as a service providers in the world. And Caroline's going to share some exciting news with us today.
Yes.
Good morning, Caroline. How are you? I'm doing great. Today's a great day, Alan.
Yes. So share with us the news then. What makes it so great?
All right. So Cobalt is a digital platform that connects companies with pen testers. We've been performing thousands of pen testers per year, growing exponentially. And today I'm very pleased to announce that Cobalt has raised $29 million from investors to continue our global expansion, bringing our total funding level to $37 million. The Series B round was led by, Series B, growth stage expert, Highland Europe. Really excited to have Gaj Rajanathan join our Cobalt board as part of this next stage.
That's fantastic, Caroline. First of all, congratulations to everyone at Cobalt, but particular congratulations to you because I know, number one, I mean, you're out there leading the charge. You're the face of making things happen at Cobalt. But even beyond your duties at Cobalt, your service to the industry at large is I mean, that's what makes it happen, and that's what it's about. You know, I often get asked, you know, oh, let's do an episode, a webinar, an article on the leading women of cybersecurity, you know. And I'll tell you, I personally am tired of that. Like, I tell people, no, we should just do the leading people of cybersecurity, and some of them happen to be women. That's great. Let's not just, you know, do it. But when I do think of like leading women of in cyber, you're always at the top of my list. Not necessarily because of Cobalt's great success, which there is great success, but just you. I mean, you do it for me, and I appreciate it. And not only us, me, our whole, I think, community appreciates it. So congratulations to Cobalt and to you. Hope I didn't embarrass you there. So Caroline, let's talk a little. What does this mean for the company?
Yeah, so we're really excited. You know, naturally, we're going to be expanding global usage of the platform. We're going to continue developing the platform, which, as you mentioned, pioneered the penetration test as a service, the PTAS model. I think that, you know, one of the questions that I get asked frequently is, you know, what is the difference between PTAS and another automation tool? And I think, you know, the way I look at it, the pen test industry doesn't really need another cool tool. It actually needs people and process innovation. So Alan, to a conversation that you and I were having just about a week or so ago, you know, the much harder part to security is often connecting the right people who can do the technical security work and delivering those results to the development team who can actually fix the vulnerabilities. So, you know, consultants have for a long time relied on the story that the hardest part of pen testing is hacking the software. But actually, folks like you and I have known for decades what the most pervasive technical problems are and how to address them. The OWASP Top 10, which is going to get a refresh in next spring, February or so of 2021. The first version was released in 2003. And to be perfectly honest, it really hasn't changed that much. So Cobalt allows customers to move from a static pen test to a platform-driven pen test program. So we're really allowing DevOps professionals to collaborate with cybersecurity practitioners.
Yep. Let me, a couple things I want to comment on that, Caroline. First of all, you made reference to a conversation we had, and that was for our DevOps Unbound discussion on open source and DevOps on DevSecOps and DevOps and everything. And it was with you and Andrew Vanderstock, right, who's now the full-time executive director over at OWASP. And that'll air, I think, the week of August 24th or on August 24th is the air date. So stay tuned for that. But you're right, you know, and not just in security, Caroline, in DevOps especially, but in so much of technology, we try to make up for people's shortcomings by automating technology and software or what have you. So yes, there have been automated do-it-yourself pen testing or do-it-yourself AppSec scanning, for years now, 15 years. I think what's unique about the Cobalt piece of it is you're not trading the human for the automated tests, right? You still can kind of do it yourself. It's a self-serve model of setting up your pen testing, but really what you're self-serving is matching with pen testers. I almost always kind of think of it more as crowdsourcing pen testing, right? Where and the problem with that, and other people have tried that, right? The problem with it is you got such disparity between like one tester and another. It's the same kind of thing in PCI, depending who your inspector is. This may be okay, this may not be okay. What Cobalt does is normalize that, right? By your own, it's your pen test sort of framework that people use. And am I wrong, right? And so to me, that was really the big innovation here that sets this thing up for success.
Yeah, Alan, you're spot on. One of the things that the Cobalt model really tries to drive is this idea of transparency. The idea that, for decades, consulting firms would kind of use this smoke and mirrors approach to crafting a custom statement of work. And what's often happening behind that is simply that there's a bench of consultants, and what is in the best interest of a consulting firm that's selling pen test services is to get the folks on the bench out and working and billable. And that may or may not mean the best skills match for the customer. But with the Cobalt model, what we have this exclusive and closed community. So it's not sort of an everyone can participate. You've actually got to be referred into the Cobalt Core pen tester community. You've got to do a video interview. You've got to pass technical assessments. And then on top of that, for every pen test that you conduct, you're actually rated by both the customer and your pen tester team members. So there's this ongoing feedback loop that really supports the high quality. But I think that, to me, one of the most interesting things is actually the on-demand aspect of the service. So whereas today there are thousands of companies who are doing hundreds of builds a day, releasing software, monthly, weekly, daily, in some cases multiple times daily, the old school pen testing model simply cannot keep up. And so what we're trying to solve is, how do we provide on-demand manual pen testing for web applications, mobile applications, APIs, networks, cloud configuration assessments, all of these things that security folks and DevOps professionals really need. One of the things that I find myself frequently coming back to is simply that security fundamentally is about protecting value. And as value shifts from physical to digital, cybersecurity becomes ever more important. Now, I look at Cobalt as sort of this combination, if you will, of machine platform and human innovation and creativity. So there are so many different vulnerabilities that can be found using automated tools, and automated tools can help humans do things like scale. But there are actually entire classes of vulnerability types that can only be found by humans. Things like business logic attacks, things like race conditions, and things like chained exploits. So what we're doing is we're bringing penetration testing, manual penetration testing, to the market in a way that actually suits Agile and DevOps software development.
Very cool. Excuse me. So Caroline, I think we hit that one well. I want to talk a little bit some other things. So the lead investor, I'm not familiar with, in all honesty, but it sounds like a European-based fund. Is that
That's
correct?
Right. Highland Europe. So they're a global VC firm, and their portfolio includes companies like Malwarebytes, NextThink, Adjust, Content Square, and WeTransfer. And in addition to that, Highland was actually joined by angels Scott Belsky of Adobe, Soren Albegard by Zendesk, Gary Swart of Odesk, Elizabeth Say, Upwork, Greg Nicastro of Veracode and Cloud Health, and Gerhard Eschebluck of Google. So we're just really thrilled, you know, to have the support of these folks and their growth stage expertise to partner with Cobalt and take it to the next level.
So, I mean, the beautiful thing about your model is it really knows no borders. It's not geographically limited in any way. But I'm wondering if this doesn't mean an increased sort of focus on the EMEA or European market for you guys.
Sure. So Cobalt's current largest market is actually North America. We are primarily focused in North America and in Europe, and we do source global talent from all over the world. You know, we plan to expand globally, but actually our largest market today is North America.
Very cool. And, you know, I think that frankly is quite normal for a North American-based, you know, tech security startup. I'll give you a little background. DevOps.com, right? Now, a lot of people don't know this. Security Boulevard actually gets twice as many views as DevOps.com, right? So Security Boulevard is, from a views point of view, is twice the size of DevOps.com, though DevOps.com is pretty well known. DevOps.com only gets 1/3 of their views from the U.S., from North America, 1/3 of their views from Europe, basically, and then 1/3 rest of the world, of which 15% of all the views are from India. So it's a truly very big, you know, very global audience. Security Boulevard, on the other hand, which, mind you, gets twice as many views as DevOps.com, gets 52% of their views from North America.
Right, and then 48 the rest of the world. So for whatever reason, and I always think of sort of the EU and GDPR and everything being maybe a little bit further along, or you know, a little bit more security focused perhaps than the US. But for whatever reason, I think the security market in North America, US, is bigger, more vocal, more engaged.
Yeah, you know,
we see it in your.
It's interesting, Alan. I'll share with you actually a bit from my experience at Cigital, where I was working as a management consultant and a BSIM practice leader at Cigital. And so what I was doing was I had the opportunity to go all around the world and talk to different software security teams about their programs. And so I had opportunities to visit folks on the West Coast of North America, East Coast of North America, Europe, Asia, you know, really a global perspective. And what I noticed was fascinating. So, you know, to speak in general terms, one of the things that I see driving investment of cybersecurity in the Northeast is the financial services. On the West Coast is the technology firms. Now, Canada's got several big banks, and then EU is driven a lot by privacy. You've also got a lot of privacy regulation coming out of Singapore. So it is fascinating actually to see these different, you could call it levels of security maturity. I think it's largely a factor of what have the drivers been in those particular geographies. Now, naturally today, you know, I remember reading The World is Flat. I'm trying to remember the name of the author. You know, this was in
Thomas Friedman.
There you go. Right. And this was in like 2007. Fantastic work. And today it's more true than ever. Right. I think that, you know, you and I, before we began recording, we were talking about what the pandemic has done for so many different organizations and so many different people around the world. You know, and for those of us who work in digital, for those of us who can do our jobs online and who can provide our products online, you know, for example, in the first half of 2020, Cobalt's growth has actually accelerated in spite of the global pandemic with the company operating at break even, and so it's been fascinating to see what are the different drivers in different geographies. And I think that over time, that is becoming more and more widespread.
Yeah, I think it is. So I think there's two things that play, and they're kind of almost diametrically opposed. Number one is, while we see different levels of maturity, as you call them, right, across different regions of the globe in terms of security, we're also seeing it's a small world in that privacy concerns in Singapore translate into privacy concerns in Dubai and in Amsterdam, and eventually find their way here as privacy concerns in San Francisco or something, right? It is, they're more and more they're interconnected. Now, with COVID and with lockdowns and isolations and stuff like that, I think you do have the sort of island effects, right, of individual communities, but not so in tech, Caroline, because of this, right? Because of Zoom and because of, it's as easy for you to talk to your next door neighbor as it is to talk to someone in Tel Aviv, right? And that is the great equalizer to all of this, I think, that in our world.
And it's safer, right? Alan,
It
I will
is.
talk with you. We're not physically close together right now. I don't even have to be wearing a mask. I've actually had the opportunity over the past few months to interact with folks that I probably wouldn't get to see unless I was in the same physical location as them. But because of this era that we've sort of been forced into, I find myself talking with folks all over the world. And there's something cool about that. We did that, and it's just been more. I've heard Professor Scott Galloway refer to this as, the change. It's like a decade happened in a month. This was always going to happen, but it just sped it up.
Yeah, it really did. And you're not going to go back from that. I mean, I'll let you in on a little secret if you promise not to tell anyone or anyone else. One of the reasons I love doing this TechStrong TV, Caroline, is otherwise I would be home just talking to my wife, the kids, and maybe people in my office. This gives me the chance. I mean, I speak to you every 2 weeks or so, right? It seems like. This gives me the chance to stay in touch with the world still. And for someone like me who's been traveling for 20 years and just went cold turkey, no traveling, I don't know. I'd lose my mind if I didn't have this opportunity to reach out and touch people. Well, not touch, but reach out and talk to people.
Same.
Right?
Yeah.
It's really good.
I haven't packed my suitcase in months. Thank goodness for RSA conference happening in San Francisco. I actually got to see folks and give them a hug.
That was my last time out.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And thank goodness for that. I miss it so much, and I can't wait to get back to that. I went for my first social event the other day that was not going to the grocery store or, taking my dog to the vet. And I just walked around the lake with a friend, and it was wonderful. I think that under circumstances like this, we crave connection. We're really looking and seeking connection with each other.
Absolutely. And we'll never take it for granted again. Anyway, Caroline, congratulations to you. Congratulations to the whole Cobalt team. But it's well deserved, right? One of the things, I've been involved in raising funds for a long time with venture-backed companies, and you're so grateful, right? A mentor of mine once told me that, never forget what this means is that someone was willing to reach into their pocket and write a check for a significant amount of money because they have faith in what you're doing, and they think you're gonna, not based upon what you've done before, but more importantly, what you're going to do in the future. And it's tremendous vindication that someone has that kind of faith, and multiple people here have this kind of faith. But I have it too. Well, I didn't write a check, but I have a ton of faith in you and the whole Cobalt team. Keep doing what you're doing. We'll have you on soon, I'm sure, on another video, Caroline. It was great seeing you, and congratulations.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All righty. Okay. Hey, this is Alan Schimmel, TechStrong TV. We're going to be right back with our next guest. Our next interview is with Tim Armanpour. Tim is this SVP, Senior Vice President of Engineering at PagerDuty. And, you know, most of you probably are familiar with PagerDuty, public company, one of the market leaders in incident response as a platform, and just doing great work. Tim's going to talk to us about how COVID has been affecting things, not only at PagerDuty, but at PagerDuty's clients. I think you'll find it's a good interview. Tim has some great insights, and I hope you will enjoy the interview. So let's now go to our interview with Tim Armanpour of PagerDuty.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us on another episode of TechStrong TV. Our guest this episode is Tim Armanpour. Tim is with PagerDuty. We've spoken with Tim before in the past, I think mostly on podcasts, though. This may be the first time you're seeing his face, you know, live on video. Hey, Tim, welcome.
Thanks, Alan. Great to be here. Appreciate it.
So, Tim, I didn't tell folks, but actually, why don't you tell them your title and role at PagerDuty?
Sure. I'm here with PagerDuty. I head up the world of engineering and technology for PagerDuty. Been with the company a little over 5 years now.
Excellent. And, of course, you're on video, Tim, because it's COVID, and this is what we do now, right? We're all on Zoom. Many people I know have their, like, you know, their Zoom backgrounds all done up, their, you know, virtual backgrounds. I personally don't like using them for our TechStrong stuff, because then when you move, you sort of ghost out and you get people who have like half a head and stuff. But appreciate you joining us and on Zoom and talking. Tim, PagerDuty, of course, is a company that needs no introduction to our audience. We've been following PagerDuty, I think, pretty much since you guys launched, and we launched DevOps.com about 7 years ago now. And of course, you guys have evolved. Back then, it was all about incident and alert reports and management. You know, PagerDuty has obviously grown since then, IPO, and it's a platform, right? More than just thing. But, you know, in the original business plan, I don't think anyone said, what will PagerDuty's role be in if we have a pandemic? You know, and how's that going to change the game? You know, it's a game changer for sure. So how has, you know, first of all, let's talk about PagerDuty specifically. How's PagerDuty been doing, you know, through these unusual times, let's call them, that we've lived in the last few months?
Yeah, I mean, I think from the inside out, we've adapted quite well. I think we're fortunate that we are, you know, technology first company, fairly SaaS savvy, cloud native, and so, you know, when we made the call as an exec team to go full remote, I think it was a Friday morning, and it was in effect Monday morning, and we didn't really skip a beat. Now, the home life is more the challenging part for every individual for sure, right? Trying to figure out how to make it all merge together. Because there really is no separation. Let's not kid ourselves. But Page as a whole, we've been still, I think, I don't think we've really missed a beat in general from overall able to do what we need to do for our customers.
Yeah, and you know, we hear that a lot, Tim, from, I mean, because we obviously, and it, you know, when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So
Yeah.
when you're DevOps.com, you tend to speak to a lot of DevOps kind of companies. And I think companies that adopted DevOps and were, you know, very cloud native or cloud, you know, first, you know, they were already undergoing transformation. So this was a much easier transformation than, let's say, a company, you know, that wasn't, right?
Right.
And stuff like that. But you hit on something that I think is two things that are important. Number one, it's more than just, okay, I'm not going to the office, I'm going to work from home. Quite frankly, your computer's there, your tools, your bandwidth is there. You're not crippled in that regard.
No.
But working from home is a very different work environment. You know, we have spouses, significant others, we have children, we may have extended family members. And, you know, trying to do your work or find a quiet corner to get your work done and not interfere, but while still being part of family life is I think a chore that a lot of us had to figure out over these last few months, right?
Yeah, I want to think of it in terms of we've had to get a lot more. I know I've had to get a lot more disciplined and almost like purposeful about how I spend my time. And you know, I think that's where a lot of companies find themselves. How do they make sure that, you know, these businesses have to they owe things back to their paying customers? You know, one thing I tell a lot of my teams, most customers, we're all on this even playing field in terms of the industry around with COVID as a matter of fact, but our customers aren't giving us COVID discount on what they still expect for us. So, you know, companies still have to figure out how to keep the employees and the team members, you know, humming as they need to be.
Agreed. You know, and the flip side to that working at home thing and the discipline, Tim, is it's not just the discipline to keep doing work. Sometimes it's the discipline not to do work.
Yeah.
Right? To shut that off switch off. Right? Hey, man, it's 7 o'clock at night. I got to spend some time with my family, some quality time. Just because I'm working from home and I have my computer open and people are emailing me or wanting to do Zooms or, you know, I see stuff happening, I got to shut it down because it's almost, you know, it's like a Goldilocks thing, Tim. You don't want to have too little, but you can't have too much either.
Yeah.
Right?
It's true. It's true. There's a challenge around when does shutdown begin, especially if you're in the global economy.
Yep.
Every time zone, someone else's time zone, and then what's actually the most important thing for you to be paying attention to, right?
Yeah.
And it's an interesting discussion because that's literally where PagerDuty's continue to thrive, right? Can we help you really act on the stuff that's most important such that it'll actually make a difference and you won't just be spinning cycles?
Yep. So let's take it beyond PagerDuty, Tim. You know, we're 6 months into this already, just about. And look, I hope we have a vaccine and a treatment and this whole nightmare goes away. But we're probably looking at least another 6 months of this before we get back to whatever a new normal is, and maybe beyond. What you know, longer term, what are the repercussions here? What do you think we need to be looking at differently to make this all happen?
I think there are a number of things. One is just around how do we stay productive and engaged, right? I think you know, one thing that's very apparent, video is fantastic. I mean, thank goodness we have all this. Otherwise, we'd all be kind of in the dark in a different way.
Amen.
Right? And however, if you have more than a couple people chatting on video, it becomes a very sequential exercise. You don't get the same vibe and energy in the room, right, to be able to bounce things off. So I think there's both gaps and opportunity in terms of how do we help make sure people can stay creative and productive moving forward. The other piece is, you know, whenever these crises come in, two things that typically happen, right? One is that the crisis will end at some point, right? But the second thing is there's opportunity found, and how are you going to find those leverage points in order to kind of make the most of the opportunity, right? Are there things, to your point, you said, how do I shut down? How do I just stop doing things that aren't as important and focus on the really, really important stuff? Because now time is definitely not on my side.
Yep. You know, Tim, I think that on an individual point is very true. I think where a struggle may be is how managers, and you manage a team there, right? How managers and companies kind of plan for that, right? Hey, we're a global business. We've got to have 24/7 coverage, and it's very easy, you know, when we had shifts, but it's different, a little different now, and the kinds of things, right? So, for instance, I forgot where I was reading it, but if you're servicing people in an office and they're not in an office, how do you support your customers being remote? Right? Not just now, PagerDuty, you guys always had that, right? Because bam, an incident happens at 3 a.m. and you've got to get a hold of the person who is, you know, literally carrying the pager that night, right? And so they were home, and then who do they call, and how does the word get out? You know, so this is something in some ways PagerDuty was built for.
You know, it's it's a really good way to put it. The way we've been seeing it continue to emerge and grow for us is not only is it about trying to get the attention of that one person at some random period of the day, right? But given how most companies have either become or trying to figure out how to strive to become a digital business, everybody depends on things with blinking lights. You got to keep those lights blinking at the end of the day, right? That's just the way it is now. And it's rarely dependent on just one person anymore. So the platform of PagerDuty has really been designed to help teams and large groups of people actually get orchestrated in order to help get to that next stage very quickly. And that next stage ideally is resolve the thing that caused something to go bump so that you can then get back on track to what you were expected to do. And it's far more easier to do it when maybe 25 years ago when architecture and organizations were a little simpler. But everybody's grown in complexity, and now it just becomes one big spider web of fun that we tend to thrive in, or we can actually create rich context in those types of situations.
Sure. Tim, any other kind of predictions, observations of what you see happening and where we might be going?
There's a couple of things we've been seeing across, and this is a benefit of our more than 12,000 customers we have, and we've been around for 11 years. One thing is this notion of whether I'm going to become digital or when. It's all kind of gotten mushed together where now everyone's on this acceleration path, right? And things that we probably thought that would take place in some of the largest of the large organizations are happening right now. That's adoption of cloud, right? Everyone wants to find newfound leverage points. Every leader like myself is being told, go and inspect some inefficiency and fix it. Right, so you get the adoption of cloud, and these are big brands shifting from one operating environment to another. All those are accelerating. So there probably would have been things written in the past of by 2025, we would have seen, a certain percentage adopted cloud, certain percentage moved to DevOps. People are still trying to figure out how to do and create a more agile environments internally for themselves and outcomes they can impact. I'm thinking this is more like a 2022, 2023 imperative where you don't have a choice. If you don't start shifting quickly, you're just not going to compete and you're going to be left behind. And so now that's more of where a lot of the positive energy is coming from a lot of our customers, a lot of our prospects, a lot of like companies where how can we help everyone just be ready for this set of new norms. Everybody's on Zoom. We got my kid's 8-year-old knows how to Zoom now. And thankfully, Zoom's a really stable platform as well that helps us keep going.
Agreed. And you're right. Someone was telling me, like, their 4-year-old, said something about mommy, something with Zoom. It's become, it's just ubiquitous, man.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, Tim, the other thing is we live in a bubble. meaning you and I and people in this kind of tech and DevOps world where, we talk about transformation, digital transformation rather casually. Like, of course you are, right? Of course you should do this. Of course you should have done it before. But the truth is, for a lot of companies, it's a real parting of the seas kind of change here, right? I mean, it's not something that, we're already on Zoom and everyone has a laptop, right? I mean, it's not as easy. What advice do you have for companies out there that may be struggling?
I think the biggest thing that everyone quickly realizes that this is not just a technology thing, but it's a human thing. Right? We actually have to recondition and almost like retrain ourselves to work differently, and that does take time. Humans don't like to change. It does take time. The other piece is, I think what we're seeing a lot of, and I think I know I'm a big believer of this, just trying to keep the PagerDuty platform operating as it needs to be, is you want to really whittle things down to what are the most essential things you're dependent on to be successful. And that could be everything from, is my organization ready to be Zoom savvy, to all the way to what are the internal processes I have across my teams so that they don't get stuck in their own ways, to, if I'm going to go in the cloud, I'm only going to be as good as my dependencies. How do I ensure that that's going to be operating the way I expect, right? And, this is, again, we've got 12,000 plus customers that have trusted us to help make sure that they're always on, and that's where we come in. We thrive off of that. The second piece has a lot to do with, I feel, around just general expectations, right? And be able to get from one stage to another, right? Like you said, parting the seas to shape-shift organizations sometimes takes years. It's not measured in months. Sometimes it's in years.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk to a lot of people, how many companies are still sponsoring and spending millions on agile transformation 10 years in, right? DevOps, I mean, this is not the most newest phenomenon in the industry around becoming more DevOps savvy, but it's still hard a lot of times because you have humans, and then you got to couple the humans with the right technology choices to get them all empowered to be successful.
We lose sight of that, Tim, because I live in a DevOps bubble, right? Everyone's doing DevOps.
Guilty.
Yeah, you too. And what we need to remember sometime is, even if you go by the numbers from the Gartner, the Forresters, and all those people, even if you're going to believe them, 60 to 70, 75% of organizations have dabbled in DevOps, right? In other words, they've tried it, they've got little trials going on, or what have you. Companies that, let's call it through and through DevOps, right? That are really DevOps all the way top to bottom, still probably only represent 25% at most of organizations. 75%, the overwhelming super majority, are still trying to figure it out. And this COVID thing has kind of put a gun to their head about a lot of it, but they're still trying to figure it out. And a lot of them are just kind of muddling by, right? It's the best they can do, and they got to keep doing, it's all they can do. They can't do more than the best they can. And they strive to do more. But that's also part of the mission of PagerDuty, to help these companies, right?
It is. And I think what's really different now, Alan, compared to prior maybe periods of time, is that there's this compelling event that's happened across the globe. It's not unique to one industry. It's not unique to one geolocation. We're all in this together, in that now time is more important than anything else, right? That the clock is ticking. When's the vaccine coming out? Just give me the vaccine, I'll be fine, right? But
I wonder that if we put too much,
you just don't know,
another
right?
silver bullet. Well,
it
it just seems like a silver bullet. And what makes you think,
There's
you got a
really one silver
vaccine,
bullet.
right? If it works at 98%, are we going to get it to 7 billion people?
Right.
Because if not, what good, and who's getting it first? And man, I worry. So I come from the security, from cyber, InfoSec. And that was an industry, Tim, where we were always looking for the next silver bullet. And 25 years later, we're still looking for the next silver bullet. And we haven't solved some of the basic underlying hard problems that needed to be addressed. And I worry about that with the vaccine kind of hopes. You know?
That's I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's a hope. So it's more like, well, are you going to bank your corporate strategy on hope? Ideally not, right? And so it's more like, well, what are you going to do to take the driver's seat? And this is where it comes back to like how you make specific choices about the types of investments you want to make. Ideally, to really empower your people to be able to do the best jobs they can. And that has been, to your point, the mission of PagerDuty since day one, right? We wanted this notion of having to react to things and not knowing a whole lot of information. Like that's a hard job. That's a hard way to spend the day. So we've been working really hard to make that better and better now across multiple parts of an organization. Because again, if everything's digital, whether you're in development, in operations, in security and IT, or even customer service, or even other areas that have to touch a customer or a thing that the business is developed on top of, underneath that are going to be more servers, more things with blinking lights, right? And ultimately, PagerDuty is here to help bring all that together so that that type of workforce can actually be orchestrated to get their jobs done without having to do the siloed experiment after experiment after experiment.
Agreed, man. Hey, Tim, we're about out of time. I want to thank you for joining us.
All right.
Time goes really quick here. Hey, keep up the great work at PagerDuty. Because at the end of the day, Tim, I think you got to remember that you're helping a lot of organizations get through, these very, very unusual times.
That's why we're here.
And, yep. So keep up the great work. Regards to everyone.
Thanks.
And we'll be in touch. All right. Bye-bye. Tim Armenpour at PagerDuty here on TechStrong TV. This is Alan Schimmel. We'll be back soon with our next guest. Our next session is with Jane Grohl, my partner and CEO at DevOps Institute. This is our something old for today. It does come from TechStrong Con, and it's Jane's session there on upskilling for the hybrid TechStrong human for 2020 and beyond. Great presentation. I can think of few people in the world who are more kind of focused in on upskilling and what is the skill set that you're going to need to be successful in the years ahead. Here's Jane's presentation from TechStrong Con.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jane Grohl, CEO of the DevOps Institute. I'm really excited to be here at the TechStrong conference. And today, what I really want to talk about is upskilling for what we're now calling the hybrid human, particularly for the hybrid TechStrong human for 2020 and beyond. So if you're not familiar with DevOps Institute, I really am delighted to introduce you. Our mission is to advance the humans of DevOps, and we do that by equipping those humans with what we call SKIL, skills, knowledge, ideas, and learning. And we do that by accrediting and orchestrating SKIL through our certifications, through our research. We have learning opportunities. We do monthly virtual conferences. And then I think most importantly, we really try to connect the community, the very global community, to each other. So I invite you to become a member of the DevOps Institute community. It is free. So go up to our website, www.devopsinstitute.com, and you can become a member and start enjoying some of those benefits today. So I want to start our upskilling story today by acknowledging that the world has shifted very suddenly, very drastically in 2020. I don't think I'm telling you anything that you're not aware of. It's unprecedented that seriously the whole world shut down. And as much as we honor the first responders, the healthcare workers, those that had to go to essential businesses, grocery workers, delivery folks. And of course, they've really helped us ride out this terrible storm. I also think that the unsung heroes of the pandemic is the global tech community, right? Many organizations had to pivot so quickly without much notice, and depending on the state of their technology, whether they were cloud-based, on-prem infrastructure, a little bit of all of the above, the status of their applications, pretty much most of the world had to transform from likely an office-based environment to a remote environment, over the course of a week or two. And so a strong exercise in continuity for sure, but also I think a strong exercise in terms of what is required for transformation. And so, again, as members of the tech community, I applaud you. I think that this situation has illustrated several things for the enterprises, particularly as far as the competitive advantage of their tech. And hopefully today we can take a little bit of a look at what's needed as we move beyond the pandemic and into this new decade. So we're looking at the new normal. I don't know what the new normal looks like. I don't know that you do either, but there are certain things I think that are very, very clear. First of all, digital transformation for the enterprise is really no longer optional. If the pandemic has shown us anything, it's really amplified the need for transformation, that the way we might have done, not even just pre-pandemic, but the way some enterprises, particularly those with a lot of legacy, have been operating over the last 10 or 20 years, likely is not going to be as competitive as we move into our digital future. I actually think the pandemic pushed us 2 to 5 years into a place from a technical perspective that we would have ended up anyhow, right? We would have had more work from home. We would have had more migration to the cloud. We would have needed to look at doing things smaller and more simply. So I do think that while the pandemic has been horrible on its human toll, I do think it has pushed us into a new normal, perhaps faster than we would have expected, but we would have gotten there anyhow. So digital transformation is no longer optional. And in order to succeed at digital transformation, we have to have humans that are upskilled, cross-skilled, and in some cases even reskilled, particularly as we look at the talent gaps that existed before the pandemic, and of course the growing need for different skill sets within the technology stack. And I think some of that's going to come from people inside our space. Some of it may even come from reskilling individuals that perhaps lost their jobs and are now looking for new careers. So, let's not focus too much on what the new normal is, but let's definitely look at some of the indicators that will point individuals and organizations towards new skills, new approaches. And I'm not going to be the one to tell you that. We're going to look at some data coming from DevOps Institute's 2020 Upskilling Enterprise DevOps Skills Report. Which skills do you need? How do you know? And that's, I think, the origins of this research project. We've been doing the upskilling report now for 2 years. Third year is going to kick off very, very quickly. Very grateful to the sponsors that have supported our ability to do this. But the origins of the report are pretty simple. In a space as large as IT, whether you're enterprise IT, you work for a tech company, right? In the tech space, the number of new skills that are necessary in order to adapt to this very fast acceleration of technology in our society is growing and growing and growing. And if you use the term DevOps, if you want to substitute the word IT, because DevOps really it spans all of IT, then we do need to look at what are the new skills and how do you know, right? How do you know as an individual which skills you should be grooming? How do you know as an organization which skills you should be upskilling or hiring? And which of those large number of skills are really going to be important to your digital future? Well, that's the question DevOps Institute has been asking and hopefully gathering some data that will be helpful to you over the last couple of years. Which skills are considered must have, nice to have, and not as important across 4 major categories of skills. And we'll get deep into the data in just a minute. So not surprisingly, pre-pandemic, 52% of the respondents to this global community research project said the DevOps journey is difficult. I think what's more interesting is that it almost equally divided the difficulty among 3 major segments: people, process, and technology. So it isn't just that the automation aspects are hard, or that trying to align processes like ITIL and continuous delivery and site reliability engineering and agile software development, but the human aspect of it was equally difficult as well. And we know from the data that the race for DevOps humans, those that are looking at the talent gap and how do we fill the need for these digitally transformed humans, there's a race for that. And again, let's go back to this report. The research was done through the end of last year, and then the report was released on March 10th. So again, if you think about timing, this is data that is not influenced by what's been happening in the world the last couple of months, but also I think is an indicator of that acceleration. So 52% said they were currently recruiting or plan to recruit those with quote unquote DevOps skills over the next 12 months. 17% said they didn't know, 13% said they had no plans for recruiting. Bet you some of that has changed so far. And 11% said they had completed their recruiting cycle. And again, I would be very, very interested to see as we start the 2021 report and the data and survey that goes behind it, how much of that stays the same or not. What was fascinating and also a little bit disappointing is that only 31% of the over 1,200 respondents said that their organization had a formal upskilling program. Now, we know that there are some very high-profile upskilling programs. FedEx, Amazon have both very publicly announced their investments in upskilling programs for their employees. But as of December, only 31% had a formal program, 38% didn't, and about 20% said they were starting to develop a program. Again, I'll be really interested as we start to look into the next year, based on what's happened this year, whether some of that data has changed. But 31%, right? And that's across the globe. I mean, a lot of this data really is coming in regionally from North America, from EMEA, from APAC. So this is not necessarily unique to, say, North America or to Europe. This is across the entire globe. So the categories that we looked at very specifically in terms of what do we think the DevOps human needs? Now, we use the term human very specifically because regardless of where you live, your gender, other characteristics, we're all human. And so when we look at kind of the holistic approach to skilling, upskilling for what we now affectionately call the DevOps human, it really does break into certain key categories, right? What's your process skills and knowledge? Because in order to operate efficiently, you have to have some process. It doesn't necessarily need to be rigid process, but you need to understand process, because process is going to underpin your automation. It's going to underpin other aspects of your organization. What about your human skills? Formerly known as soft skills, we don't think soft skills are soft. We think they're hard. So we've reframed them as your human-to-human skills. Your automation skills, right? So we know that in order to digitally transform, you need to be able to have intelligent automation that helps to achieve some of the redundant tasks. And if you look at those top 3 categories, you can see that they're almost statistically equal. So the respondents, and again, we'll drill a little bit deeper into the data, but the respondents for 2 years in a row have felt that your process, your human, and your automation skills are almost equal in terms of their importance. Equal if you're looking for a job and you're looking to be hired, equal if you're an organization that is looking to identify talent, equal if you are an existing organization and you're looking to grow and help that organization be successful. So process skills, human skills, automation skills, almost equal across the board. And we'll take a little look at even the different layers of roles within the organization. And then next up is your functional knowledge, right? Certain areas of practice. We'll take a little look at that as well. What I thought was particularly fascinating is the bottom three. So most of the respondents, and let me tell you that half of the respondents 2 years in a row have self-identified as operations, and 50% have self-identified as development, with gradients in there, right, with security. And of course, we can look at the different layers of, say, the C-suite, the management layer, or the practitioner. But across the board, your knowledge of an individual vertical market, right? So if you're looking at healthcare, if they're looking to retain somebody in the healthcare space, perhaps it's an advantage knowing, the healthcare industry, but not a must-have. Specific automation tools, understanding critical thinking or best practices around architecture, CD pipelines, APIs, much more important than understanding specific tools and even specific certifications. And again, really interested to see what this looks like next year. So let's take a look at those different categories, because I think it's really fascinating. First of all, from a C-suite, a management level, the individual contributor, practitioner, and the contractor, they all agreed equally across the 1,260 respondents that process skills were a must-have. Right? There's not even a little bit of distance between the different roles. Automation, pretty much. I mean, we definitely felt that the management layer for automation skills and human skills felt those were much more important. But again, think of the management layer as most likely being the hiring layer, right? The layer within IT that's going to do most of the hiring or even most of the upskilling. But there's a lot of agreement here, right? There's a lot of agreement across all of the layers that those human skills, those automation skills, those process skills are really essential as part of your ingredients in terms of being a really valuable contributor to the organization's digital transformation, even on the contractor side, right? Individual contractors, really did feel that those human skills, those automation skills, and those process skills were cool. And then there's also some agreement on the others, right? There's some agreement on the need for business skills. The C-suite felt more strongly that business skills were important, whereas the management layer felt that functional skills were important. So again, we're going to drill deeper into this, but I think it's really fascinating looking at some of the differences between where you sit in the organization. So let's start looking at some granulated data with human skills, right? So as I said before, formerly known as soft skills, at DevOps Institute, we feel really clearly that human skills, that first of all, soft skills are hard, and that they really are human to human skills. So again, here we're going to start to look at a little bit of the regional differences between North America, EMEA, and just globally. And I think universally, being a good collaborator, being somebody that's very cooperative is most important across all of the regions. And again, being a good collaborator means you're really comfortable asking for others' opinions, asking for input, giving feedback, right? Cooperating with other teams, breaking down those silos. And then following on that, interpersonal skills, right? Your ability to relate to other people, your ability to solve problems. And then as you work your way further down, there's a lot of emphasis year over year on empathy, right? The ability for you to put yourself in the shoes or to see through the lens of another person. And so, empathy speaks to respect, it speaks to trust, certainly it speaks to diversity and inclusion. So all of these are ingredients in the collaborative DevOps human. And by the way, they're not always organic, right? You can learn these skills. There are techniques for dealing with conflict. There are techniques for you to really improve your ability to be empathic. So these are not like either you've been born with them or you're not. And I think organizations are starting to realize that some of the upskilling they need to do are as much on the human side as they are on the technical side. Transformational servant leaders will be the norm as we move forward. Agile introduced us to the concept of a servant leader, transformational leadership, which is very inspirational, right? Servant leaders protect the team, transformational leaders inspire. And the combination of the two is going to be the future as opposed to a leader who directs, right? You do this, you do that. We're definitely seeing indicators that there's a shift towards much more of a transformational servant approach. And then the other critical success factor is to be a continuous learner, right? To be curious, to experiment, to work with others, to do training, to get certified, right? But to be somebody that's constantly growing, because frankly, the shelf life of your current skills is shorter than it's ever been before. So again, coming out of this, the message is really pay attention to your human skills, right? And if you're a hiring manager or you're a manager that promotes training, don't think this is something that people either have or they don't. It's definitely something that could be taught. Okay, kind of moving forward, we look at functional skills. A couple of things that are a little different this year than last year. Last year, IT operations was in the #1 spot, and this year it tied with security practices. So everyone in IT, regardless of your role, has got to develop some core security practices. It's one of the reasons concepts like DevSecOps have really grown. But remember, I told you half are operations, half are development. And there's a clear message here that you need to understand the 3 key elements. Now, you don't have to be an expert, right? We're going to talk a little bit about that. But the 3 key elements of IT are development and operations and security. And as a DevOps human, you need to be hybrid, right? You need to have your core competency, but you also need to have just enough knowledge about the areas that are not native to you, right? We're looking at now something called the hybrid product team, where the team is no longer just a group of developers or just a group of operations folks, right? We're looking not only at a team that's cross-skilled or that is multi-skilled, we're looking at individuals that are also cross-skilled and multi-skilled to just enough, right? How much security do you need to know? How much testing do you need to know? But that the team is very holistic in terms of its skilling, so that if somebody's on vacation, the team doesn't stop, or if there's an incident and somebody's on vacation, we're not paralyzed, right? So it is very much looking at this cross-skilled approach to teaming. It's also looking at measuring customer value instead of, internal focus, like how often did we release? For a customer, that's not necessarily important. So the hybrid product team is growing as well, and hopefully you'll be a part of that. Now, I mentioned before about process and framework skills, and actually this rose to the #1 spot, whereas last year, I think it was #2 or 3. But look at these processes, right? It's not necessarily, do you know, ITIL or Agile or Site Reliability Engineering or any of the other frameworks that are popular in IT. The top half of this for the second year in a row is really critical thinking process, right? So what's your experience with source control? Do you understand flow? And pay attention to that, right? Can you understand your value stream? Can you understand flow? Do you understand the core concepts of the software development lifecycle or what it means to be agile, right? And then the bottom half is very much supported by some of the frameworks like SRE, like we're now seeing value stream mapping, test-driven development, Scrum, right? So those are great enablers of the top half of process and frameworks. But the message here is that process not only shapes behavior, process is what's needed to underpin your automation. Automation replicates process, not the other way around. So again, when you go deeper into this report, you can really see some indicators that these are must-have skills, as opposed to, how many skills do you have in a particular framework. Now, we saw some interesting growth indicators here. While certainly DevOps and Agile adoption is growing, here's the disruptor. If you're not familiar with site reliability engineering, it's been on the scene for a while, coming out of the Google book of the same name, but we saw a pretty significant rise in framework adoption and interest in site reliability engineering as an operational practice, right? Looking at it from a people, process, and automation perspective. Really interesting, really disruptive. DevOps Institute has declared June as Site Reliability Engineering Month. I'll tell you at the end about a couple of things you can do to learn a little bit more about that. But if you're not familiar with SRE, you can read the Google book for free on their website. But this is something to pay attention, particularly if you come from the operational side of the house, or if you come from the ITSM side of the house, because Google does consider SRE to be its service management framework. So again, Agile and DevOps are growing, but SRE is quickly starting to catch up. And then, technical skills, right? Last year it was cloud, and it still is, right? And I think, again, the pandemic is going to move more organizations to the cloud or to be hybrid much more quickly. But this year, CI/CD tool chains took the top spot. So while being in the cloud is important, also being able to build pipelines that allow you to deploy faster, to test more frequently, right? To really embed things like testing and security, build and deploy, really took the top spot. And I think we're seeing a lot of that in direction. But pay attention to number 3 with APIs. Can't have a good CI/CD toolchain without APIs. So those top 3 really are your most significant technical skills. And you notice they're not specific to a tool or an application. Sure, understanding Kubernetes and containers is very, very important, but all of that is in support of CI/CD, cloud, and APIs. So technology also shapes your behavior. But if you think you're going to get to DevOps specifically through just automation, that's not necessarily going to be your full path. So kind of just trying to wrap up a little bit, I want to tell you about T-shaped and E-shaped people. And again, I know that as an attendee, you probably come from a wide variety of tech roles, or maybe you're even thinking about a tech career. And I would certainly encourage you to do that. I'm an accidental technologist from a bit ago. But as IT has grown up, we've kind of groomed this I-shaped model where IT, enterprise IT in particular, is built on specialists, right? So teams of specialists that have a specialist manager, and maybe they roll up to a specialist director. And a lot of the work that has caused delay has been a result of handoff, right? Where, the developers develop and then they send it downstream to security and to QA and to build, release, and deploy, right? And again, there's an inherent delay there. So last year, we encouraged people to go from being an I-shape to being a T-shape, which meant you still had your specialty, right? You still have your core knowledge, but you supplement it by filling the top of your T with a broad range of general knowledge. Maybe you are a test-driven developer, right? So you're not an expert QA or an expert tester, but you know enough to write test cases, to read test logs, right? To be able to help shape some of the automation. Security, I just said everybody has to learn security. And so having that broad general knowledge, I think is essential for everyone so that we can have security starting way earlier in the cycle and continuing past production. So you want to think about how you fill the top of your T with broad knowledge. Certainly your human skills, right? Really being able to accelerate your human skills. Well, T-shaping is great, but this year and beyond, we've gone another level deep. And we're now encouraging you to be E-shaped. Now, it's not just a different letter of the alphabet, right? We understand that your T is built, first of all, on your ability to have good, deep knowledge about process. Because regardless of whatever role you play, you're going to have to, whether it's agile process, whether it's SRE, whether, light process, complex process, you do need to understand flow. Right? If nothing else, you need to understand flow. And so that has to be a deep competency. You also need to focus on your human skills, right? And to be better at empathy, to really think about your collaboration approach, your cooperation approach, and particularly creating kind of a matrix hybrid product team. And within that, you're going to have automation skills, functional skills, and technical skills that will support your human skills and your process skills. But I think the most important element of the E is your experience, right? And you can only get experience by doing something, right? By being comfortable exploring, by looking at execution, by experimenting, right? And so part of the DevOps principle is we want you to experiment. We want you to be a continuous learner. And the best way to evolve as a hybrid tech-strong human is by having experience, kind of like getting your driver's license, right? You take a road test, which is theoretical. You take some kind of test that shows, the basic functions of a car. But really how you become a skilled driver is by getting on the road. And so all of these are elements in what we're now calling the hybrid tech-strong DevOps human. It's always going to be people, always. Right? So as I said before, if you think that you can get to DevOps through technology, automation is critical, but it's not going to get you there on its own because automation is only a reflection of the human aspects. That's why DevOps Institute's mission is to advance the humans of DevOps, right? Because it is always going to be people that drive transformation, right? Culture doesn't transform, people transform when they're inspired to do that. So think about skilling up yourself, right? And challenge your organization to adapt. One of the interesting things about DevOps is sometimes it's top down, sometimes it's bottom up, but nobody can force you to upskill, right? I can't inject you with upskilling. That's a journey you have to take, hopefully with the support of your organization. So I think there's a key part of it. Leaders have to lead a different way. And some of that's taking you out of the comfort zone because a leader that might have been more directive in their past now have to become transformational, which means they inspire people to do something different, to act differently, but they also serve the team as opposed to the team serving them. And so that's promoting a new way of working. And I think there's a lot of good case studies that are starting to evolve about that. And then organizations have to stand out there and foster and reward learning, whether it's a formal upskilling program, whether it's peer-to-peer, whether it's reimagining the makeup of a team. Organizations have to commit to that change. And they also have to look at measuring things different so that customer value and customer experience are really the critical pieces of that. So again, I gave you a really high level look at some of the data that's in the upskilling report. You are absolutely invited to go to devopsinstitute.com, become a free member. There's some really great assets up there, but you also can download the full report. It's pretty deep. There's a lot of data, particularly on the regional side. There's some insight from different lenses, from enterprise leaders, from recruiting leaders. So again, please go ahead and download the report. It's free. Share it with your colleagues. It's a really great talking focal point to figure out where you need to be and, of course, where your organization needs to be. So thank you. I've been saying in order to be tech strong, we have to have strong tech, and we only get strong tech through strong humans. So appreciate the opportunity to share with you some of this data today. If you are interested in growing some of your skills, DevOps Institute is hosting a monthly microconference, a virtual microconference, where each month we take a particular topic and we put it under the microscope with speakers and chat and sponsors and others. And this June happens to be Site Reliability Engineering Month. So June 18th, we will be hosting a micro conference. And again, if you're in the operations space, I would certainly encourage you to register. It's free. They're pretty cool conferences. So I hope you'll take advantage of that. So on that note, again, I'm Jane Grohl. I'm CEO of the DevOps Institute. It's been my pleasure to be with you here at the TechStrong conference, and I wish you good health and I wish you good skills. Thanks very much.
Okay, great presentation there from Jane. Let's now go to our news headlines from around the media ops neighborhood sites. Again, as usual, these are just the headlines of some of the articles you can check out. There's a lot more up there if you get a moment. Let me go to them now, though. Over on Security Boulevard, we have a new survey out that finds lag in crisis response planning. I don't think that's new news. I think there's been a lag in crisis response planning for a long time. But the survey kind of bears it out. Another good article on Security Boulevard. 5 trends to consider for effective security training. It's a good article. And security training, by the way, it's not something you do once and set it and forget it. You need an ongoing security training regimen and plan. But anyway, 2 good articles of the maybe 40 that are published on Security Boulevard today, so please do check out the Boulevard. Over on Container Journal, our site on microservices, Kubernetes, and Cloud Native, we have the CNCF Cloud Native ecosystem expansion continues. So we have new CNCF projects coming on board. Of course, KubeCon and CNCF Con were this week. We also have Cloud Native can tame operations complexity. Good article. Unfortunately, I still am of the opinion that sometimes Kubernetes itself can create complexity. But then we have Intel exposes Kubernetes flaw. You know, it's a relatively new project, but the flaw is exposed. I'm sure it'll be patched, but do check out the article. Over on DevOps.com, why we need a software bill of materials industry standard. I am all for industry standards. I agree wholeheartedly here. Check out the article. How API testing can save you thousands. You know, APIs continue to be such an underreported but important piece of the whole DevOps ecosystem. And then 7 things to make DevSecOps a reality. I think DevSecOps is a reality. It's a question of what makes it a reality for you. But check out the article, 7 good how-tos there, and I think it'll help you. That's it on the news today. Let's now head over to Charlene O'Hanlon, our managing editor. Charlene has a great interview today, speaking of APIs, on APIs with folks from TIBCO, as well as a webinar preview for our week coming up. Charlene, take it away.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to TechStrong TV. I'm Charlene O'Hanlon, Managing Editor at Media Ops, and I am here now with Nelson Petracek, who is the CTO at TIBCO. Nelson, thank you so much for taking the time talking with me today. Really appreciate it.
Oh, no, absolutely. Looking forward to it.
All right, great. Well, I want to talk to you a little bit about this new API economy that we're now living in. We're hearing about APIs pretty much all the time now as more organizations are kind of joining the API bandwagon, if you will. So, and that's in all phases of business development. So, but yeah, if I remember correctly, APIs have been around for like least 10 years or so. So what is it about AP? What is it about now that makes the us living in the API economy now as opposed to another time?
Sure. Yeah, no, that's right. And you're right. I mean, the notion of APIs have been around for a very long time. I mean, it's typically how people would write software programs. I mean, inevitably at some level, you're using APIs.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what you're seeing now is people are realizing that APIs are not just about low-level, detailed, code and whatnot, but it's also how you enable and expose a lot of what your business does, and just makes that more accessible to either your own internal users, as well as to outside organizations as well. So it's really this evolution of what is now being termed as digital transformation. It's really a component that can facilitate this move towards technologies like the cloud, and again, being a much more agile digital organization. And so APIs are one aspect of that strategy, but I think that's why you're seeing this renewed interest. They've kind of gone up the stack. They're not so programmer or detail oriented, if you will, anymore, not so low level. They're much higher level, and they do fit very well into an overall digital transformation strategy.
Yeah, well, I imagine the digital transformation in general has been a true catalyst for API adoption, especially over the last, God, I hate to say it, 6 months or so during the pandemic, when organizations have had to kind of pivot to at least kicking off a digital transformation project if they hadn't already, or accelerate their plans to do so. So do you think that, beyond digital transformation, has there been maybe advances in API creation, or, software development, or just the technology in general that's made APIs kind of more favorable for organizations to adopt?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got sort of the recognition by, I'll call it the executive levels of an organization, just the recognition by those teams that APIs are an enabler for what it is they're trying to do from a business standpoint. And to your point, organizations have had to pivot quickly in really an unprecedented time. And so they realize that APIs can facilitate that type of a move. They may not know all the details as to what is underneath, but they do realize and thus support such a program. When you look at the technologies themselves, those have also evolved, and to better able to support the development of applications, systems, services, and whatnot that are based on this notion of APIs. So the technology has now made it easier to develop systems, to test systems, to roll them out, put them into production, and all those kinds of good things. The technology has made it easier. The cloud vendors have made it easier. Other vendors have also, of course, tackled this problem and built capabilities that do facilitate the adoption of APIs. And I think there's less confusion in terms of what exactly they are. They've now been talked about enough. Organizations have tested them enough that they're starting to realize where they fit and also where they don't fit. APIs aren't the answer for everything, but of course, so you still need to figure out where and how they're going to fit best in your organization.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of organizations actually embracing APIs to actually enable them to enter different markets or different customer demographics because of the features that APIs can enable for their technology. So, I always hear really good things about APIs, but I mean, they're not perfect, right? I mean, there's got to be some drawbacks to APIs. So what are they? What would people need to keep in mind?
Sure. I mean, it's anything from having a good understanding, first of all, who your audience for those APIs is, whether you're actually targeting your own internal users, your own developers, or whether you're targeting external users. If you don't properly identify who your audience is or what those personas are, if you will, who's actually going to be using those APIs, there's a chance that they just may not be successful. You need to understand how to market to those people, and even whether, again, that's external or internal. People forget that if I'm building APIs for internal use, I still need to tell people that they're there and why they should be using them. So you're almost marketing to your own internal organization in a sense around those APIs. You have to look at things like monetization. So are you planning to monetize your APIs? And if so, what is that going to look like? Or are you strictly using APIs as an add-on feature to an existing product or capability? Right? So these are the kinds of things you need to look at. Never mind, what technology you're going to pick. Is it REST? Is it GraphQL? Is it a mixture? What kind of API management platform are you going to use to support the development and deployment of these APIs? And even how are you going to do simple things like versioning? If you do not handle versioning correctly, your APIs are eventually going to become a little bit of a headache to deal with, especially, again, depending on whether you're internal or external users of those APIs. So there's a number of factors that you have to take into account. Otherwise, your API program can quickly go sideways.
Okay. All right, great. What about from an application development or software development perspective? Are there certain things that developers need to keep in mind when they're working with APIs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's an overall API life cycle, I like to call it, both in terms of how you actually come up with the original design of your APIs and the API contracts, to when you actually do your implementation and the technologies you're going to use to actually implement the APIs, all the way straight through to, again, how you version or even deprecate those APIs. People often forget about the fact that you should think about how you're going to get rid of certain APIs even before you start really building them. And management and monitoring fits into this very nicely as well. People will often forget that they should actually, very early on in that API lifecycle, think about how you're going to manage and monitor these APIs and make sure that they're running the way they should be running and that they're being used appropriately. Right? So there's another aspect around that of course leads to security, another big talking point around APIs. So as an application developer, there's a number of things you need to think about. So again, right from the contract to how you're going to build the services, what specifications or standards are you going to employ, how are you going to actually deploy these things into production, how are you going to manage them, monitor them, and even think about versioning or even deprecation.
All right. Well, from my perspective, it seems like APIs are definitely more beneficial than they are detrimental to any business organizations and helping them if they're done well. Yes, exactly. As with everything, right?
Absolutely. Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Well, Nelson, I do want to thank you for just taking a couple of minutes and talking with me about APIs. I think it's an interesting topic, and I think as digital transformation efforts extend beyond the pandemic into hopefully getting back to doing just some really, really cool things and not just keeping the lights on. I think we're going to see even more movement in the API space. So thanks again for your conversation, your expertise. Really do appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much. Enjoy the conversation.
Great. All right, great. All right, everybody, please stick around. We've got lots more TechStrong TV coming up, so stay tuned.
Disruption is occurring across every aspect of IT. Open source, cloud services, DevOps, and cloud-native software architectures are democratizing IT and radically transforming how business is done. The old ways of creating software and doing IT are being replaced with agile, flexible, faster, and cheaper methods, benefiting vendors and users alike. Accelerated Strategies Group is out to democratize access of industry expertise and knowledge. We use our expertise and experience to offer insightful, intelligent, useful information in a variety of formats relevant to the IT community: digital events, videos, reports, assessments, workshops, and implementation projects with tech vendors, IT organizations, and business leaders. We widely and openly share our work products, often for free. Analyst reports these days aren't worth more than a graph or chart that tells a story or illustrates a market trend. We work with developers, DevOps teams, cloud architects, security engineers, and transformation leaders most every day, creating and implementing transformational strategies and technologies. We're not just thinkers, we're also doers.
Hey everybody, happy Thursday. This is Charlene O'Hanlon, Managing Editor at MediaOps, and I am here with the Thursday edition of the Webinars Preview. We have a lot of webinars coming up on the sites, particularly DevOps.com, and so I thought I'd take this opportunity to let you guys know about a couple that are coming up quickly. The first one I want to let you guys know about is called Value Stream Management, the Future or a Distraction. It's happening Monday, August 24th at 1 p.m. This one is sponsored by Plutora. And in this webinar, we have Helen Beal of DevOps Institute. She's going to be moderating a panel discussion that includes Bob Davis of Plutora, the CMO of Plutora, and a couple other folks in the DevOps industry who will be talking about the value of value stream management in software development. gonna be an interesting conversation, I am sure. So one worth checking out. Again, this one is happening Monday, August 24th at 1 p.m. Eastern on DevOps.com. The second webinar I want to let you know about is called Attacking and Defending Cloud Native Infrastructure. It's happening Tuesday, August 25th at 1 p.m. Eastern, again on DevOps.com. This one is sponsored by WhiteSource. And the webinar is actually going to detail some low-level exploitable issues with containers and Kubernetes deployments, and talking about some of the lessons learned by the speaker of the webinar, and show attendees, that would be you guys, how to ensure that you don't fall victim to some avoidable attacks that are happening in Kubernetes and container ecosystems. Container security is always a hot topic. So definitely, if you've got the time, please check this one out. It is happening, as I said, Tuesday, August 25th at 1 p.m. Eastern on DevOps.com. All right, the third webinar today is the future of security and productivity in our newly remote world. This one is happening Tuesday, August 25th also. This one is at 3 p.m. Eastern on DevOps.com. And this one, we have our very own Alan Schimmel speaking with Rajat Bhargava, who is with Jump Cloud, who is actually the sponsor of this webinar. And they're going to be talking about how security is changing in our new kind of work from home paradigm, and some of the new and emerging standards for protecting identities, endpoints, and data. This is going to be a really fascinating webinar because of the so many considerations that organizations have to keep in mind with their newly remote workforce, some of the issues that they've been working through, and basically how security is evolving because of it. So definitely, if you've got the opportunity to check out this webinar, I highly encourage you to do so. Again, this one is happening Tuesday, August 25th at 3 p.m. Eastern on DevOps.com. All right, guys, that is it for the Thursday edition of the webinars previews. Please come back on Monday and hear what we've got for webinars for you coming up in the following week. And until then, please stay safe. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday.
All right. Thanks, Charlene. Great webinar preview. Great interview with TIPCO, and just how important APIs are. Now, let's see. What else do we have exciting today? Well, Charlene is done, so it's time to go over to the Analyst Corner with Mitch. And Mitch has two segments today. One, he's announcing two new analysts joining the ASG system. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag. Mitch will introduce you to them, but I know them both. I know them both for years, and they're great people, great analysts. I think it's a great addition, just continuing to make the bench over at ASG a strong bench of people who have actually done what they're writing and talking and analyzing, and it's important. And then secondly, Mitch has a great interview with Wicker CTO Chris Howell about security and 5G networks. So Mitch, take it away.
Welcome to Analyst Corner. Mitch Ashley, CEO with Accelerated Strategies. A little bit of news to talk about today. We have some new folks that have joined the Accelerated Strategies team. First is Charles Kalaji. Now, you may know that name if you've been in the security world, certainly as long as I have. I guess I got into security in probably like 98, 97, somewhere in that range. Charles was a long-time, 15-year, I believe, analyst with IDC covering the security market. Now, he goes back to starting his career in the NSA, one of those three-letter acronym organizations. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And after he was at IDC, he was with IBM for a while, and then he went independent, and now he's partnered up with Accelerated Strategies. He's currently working on a research project around Kubernetes security, which we have a survey out. We'd love for your help. Now, keep in mind, we don't just issue surveys like everybody else, like a market research company might. And nothing wrong with those. Those are valuable to do too. But the folks that when we do our research, we design our surveys around some very specific knowledge that we're trying to learn about, capture, benchmark, all kinds of different purposes. But there's a pretty rigorous process that we go through to really make sure that we're designing some kind of a data instrument that we can gather really valuable information, both to whoever's sponsoring it, but also to the broader audience. We want it to be something that you're interested in checking out, whether you watch a video or read the executive summary, check out some of the infographics, whatever it might be. So Charles is working on that, and we're excited to have him on board. Also joining us is Don McVitie. Now, you may know Don he's written for a number of folks. He certainly writes for a lot of DevOps.com and other MediaOps properties. He's run labs. He's done product testing. He's actually kind of into the software as infrastructure at the moment, is a bit of his specialty, and some AI as well. But both are super gentlemen. By the way, Don also has a nice article following up on a previous, I think it may have been Tuesday of this week, Analyst Corner, where I talked about the proliferation of passwords and what's happening with the current COVID situation with all the increase in services that all of us are using, or all of our end users are using. So check out that article that's on DevOps.com that Don wrote. So Don's doing some other product research with us. We're doing some competitive analysis for customers, and also doing some mapping of where products are falling in the market right now, and who might be in a leadership position in certain areas, things like that. You'll hear more about that from us in the future. Now, I don't remember if I mentioned, but be sure to check out the Accelerated Strategies site for new reports, and also for research that we have going on right now. And we'd love to have you participate. This Kubernetes research that Charles is working on, the survey is currently in the wild. And so this is what I term it when we have those out collecting data from all of you. So you can go to accelst.com, and you'll find it just kind of below the hero image there. You'll see a link to the survey. So lots of good stuff. I also want to bring up on the Kubernetes front, you may have seen this. There is an excellent Kubernetes virtual summit that's coming up on October 1st. Yes, it's a MediaOps event, so a little bit self-serving here since I'm part of the MediaOps family. But I think it's something well worth checking out, because just looking at some of the people that are speaking in this, I mean, you're talking about Liz Rice and Priyanka Sharma and our own Bob Russellman, analyst with Accelerated Strategies. Of course, John Willis, absolutely want to hear what he has to say. Tracy Reagan, Tracy Miranda, any number of folks I think that would be fantastic. It'd be worthwhile just hearing one of these. Of course, these are events you can just sign up for. You don't have to pay for them. So they're well worth the time. So that's October 1st. Definitely would recommend you checking that out. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about, following up kind of on the password topic that we were discussing earlier, very interested in what's evolving from a security standpoint as, let's say, work from home, work remote becomes more the norm. But looking at it from both a security standpoint and also from a software developer standpoint, that's something we've been investigating more recently. One of the areas is that kind of recognizing, I see a lot of surveys for COVID and for working from home and everything from furniture manufacturers, et cetera. And we have some really interesting research around the software development perspective and how that can influence the rest of the organization. And you'll see a survey let from us, a research data gathering instrument, probably later this week. I'm guessing maybe Thursday, Friday, possibly even midweek this week. So check that out. Love for you to be a part of that. And again, this is a very intentionally designed survey around understanding what are the things that developers have been doing for a number of years as remote developers, working remotely, working anywhere. I mean, I've seen people work on planes developing software because they can create their whole environment on their laptop and take it with them. So that'll be a very interesting project, and we'll be releasing the results of that sometime around mid to almost late September. So it's not very far away. You'll be able to get the results and see that very soon. So thank you for attending today. Appreciate you checking out
operations, specialize in